From a young age, our speaker today, Aurora Miller, has wanted to share the message, pain is not our birthright. She has spent her life exploring ways to communicate that truth. Now she has distilled elements of psychology, anthropology, political science, systems theory, and metaphysics into a guidebook that can help us understand why we may be experiencing emotional or spiritual pain and how we can move into a state of joyous empowerment. Please welcome the author of Butterfly Soup, Aurora Miller, whom you may know a little bit better as Ruth Miller's daughter.
Yeah, I have some pretty big shoes to fill. Thank you all so much for having me. This is such a warm place. I'm going to try to get through this without crying because I'm like so moved. And I have water. That's good. So, butterfly soup. Potentially a gross image if you think too much about it. But it's actually a really cool concept. So caterpillars, when they build their chrysalis and seal themselves inside to begin their transformation to a butterfly, first dissolve into a mass of undifferentiated cells. It's not a caterpillar anymore, and it's not yet a butterfly. It's a soup of something called imaginal cells. Almost as though the caterpillar has to imagine its way into becoming a butterfly. Similarly, when we seek change, there comes a time in the process when we're not anymore who we have been, and we're not yet who we're becoming. We're in this kind of messy in-between place, kind of a soup. And things can be kind of uncomfortable, they can be messy, they might even be painful, but it's a natural part of the process for us to transform into who we want to become. So why do we seek change? Well, the truth is a lot of people don't, right? They stay stuck in their cycles, comfortable in their stasis, repeating day after day. You wake up, go to work, watch TV, go to bed, rinse and repeat. We might know people who have dated the same person over and over again in different bodies. I might have known a few people. I'm not speaking for myself. And some people relive the same trauma over and over again. They create situations in which that story repeats. And a lot of people say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If it's working, why do anything about it? But how can you know if it's broken? How can you tell? Well, are you happy? That's one great, easy way to tell. Do you feel successful? Or is there something hanging over your head that you haven't yet accomplished, but that you want to? Some people seek change for its own sake. They want to be better, be more efficient, more capable. Others follow an evolutionary imperative to attract a better mate or to secure more resources for their offspring. But some of us have a more lofty ideal. We want to make the world a better place. And we know that only by improving ourselves can we improve the world around us. Think globally. Act locally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. So when you know you want to experience change, what then? Some people expect change to happen immediately, overnight. You think about it, and it just miraculously happens. And sometimes that's true. If the change that we seek is psychological, then yeah, all it takes is our minds. But if the change that we want to experience is on the physical plane, then there's physical work that needs to be done. If you want to run a triathlon or to learn Japanese, thinking about it isn't going to be enough. There needs to be something that happens on the physical plane. When I'm consulting with people on the change process, often they come to me and say, okay, so I know I want to make a change, and I made a plan, and I'm following through with it. And for a while, I was making amazing progress. But now I'm stuck, and nothing's moving forward. So what gives? And the thing is, a lot of people don't recognize that resistance is a natural part of that process, and they don't have the tools to address it when it arises. 41% of Americans make New Year's resolutions. 9% succeed. That's 31% of people. 100 million Americans every year experience failure. So, if you're finding that you're not experiencing the success that you want, you're definitely not alone. A lot of us run into this problem. But it's because we're not prepared to deal with the resistance. So let's talk about that. There are more kinds of resistance than there are people on the planet. Because every type is crafted uniquely for our persona, for the experiences and influences that we've received from our parents and friends, from society and the media, and it's all perfectly honed to keep us stuck. So there's all of these kinds of resistance, and I go into a lot of different details in my book. But for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to talk about 3 categories of resistance: physical, emotional, and mental. Physical forms of resistance. Biggest one is inertia, right? Basic law of physics. There's no getting around it. Form resists change. It's a fact. And it means that force or energy is required for any kind of transformation. There's also the physical reality of addiction. Not just drugs, but also food or people or experiences, activities. Anything that keeps us stuck in that unending addictive cycle. Emotional resistance comes in the form of fear. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. What are the consequences that I can't even see? We're all alive today because our ancestors were afraid of the unknown. It helped keep them safe, and it helps keep us safe. But it can also inhibit our ability to move forward in the ways that we want to move forward. So we have to be mindful of that. Mental resistance comes in the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and how the world works. They might be rationalizations or excuses. That's too hard. Or I probably wouldn't like it anyways, even if I put in all that work. This is also where issues with self-esteem come in. I'm not good enough. They wouldn't like me. So I should just, be quiet over here. And some of us have stories about what we're capable of. I have a story that's been hanging over my head since I was very young, that I am terrible at math. And every time an opportunity comes up in which math is involved, I have an automatic reaction. I can't do that. That's not for me, because I'm no good at it. It's an immediate subconscious resistance to new opportunities and chances for growth. But the good news is that none of these forms of resistance are unassailable. When we're faced with inertia, we want to build momentum, right? Small incremental changes that lead to huge possibilities. One thing every day can change your life. Baby steps are still steps. And remember, 2 steps forward, 1 step back is still a cha-cha. When we're dealing with addiction, which so many people all over the world are wrestling with every day, the good news is that there are support systems, and we can make choices. We can use our minds to influence our physical body and choose today, in this moment, I'm going to choose not who I have been, but who I want to be. Fear is unavoidable. It's another fact. But it doesn't have to control you. Some people take a playful approach, sort of a light-hearted touch, where failure isn't an issue. Other people take a sort of Buddhic detachment and recognize that what other people call a failure is an opportunity for a lesson and new growth. There's also a framework that I love that comes from biology called optimal foraging theory. And this is the study of how animals choose which patch of food to eat. And that might be a bird deciding which tree or which orchard to spend its time in, or it might be a cougar deciding which prey to stalk. But in every case, they're figuring out how many calories can I spend based on the number of calories I'm likely to get back. So how far do I have to travel? What are the risks involved? What's the pressure of competition? And similarly, we all make those choices for ourselves. How much can I invest for how much I'm going to get back? And it's hard to know that if you don't have any information, right? So they use this principle called sampling. And this is why deer eat cat food, as we've all seen some of those videos on YouTube, right? Why would a deer eat cat food? Well, it doesn't know that it's not food. It sees a cat going back to that bowl day after day. So maybe that's food. It doesn't know until it tries. So when it comes to hobbies or romantic partners or careers, we can all sample a bunch of different possibilities and not invest so much that it would be catastrophic if it turned out not to be our food, because we don't know until we try. If you're into reincarnation and esoteric philosophy, this is also where the notion of recapitulation comes in. Reliving experiences from other lives to bring that wisdom forward into this life. Another great tool that I rely on heavily for dealing with fear is Frank Herbert's Litany of Fear from his Dune novels. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. And where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Allow fear to be present. Welcome it. Feel how it hones your senses. Then let it pass and move on with the task at hand. When we're dealing with stories, with rationalizations, excuses, and even issues of self-esteem, it helps to turn to your inner truth, to your inner guidance, to the truth of who you know you want to be, even if you don't yet believe you can be. This is when affirmations are really useful, repeating the same truth over and over again until you embody it and it becomes your truth. And you can talk back to your inner voices, even have a conversation with them. Find out, why are you telling me I can't do this? What is it that's the real concern here? And how can we move forward in the direction that serves our highest good? But you need to pick the right tool for the right resistance that you're experiencing. Affirmations aren't going to help you learn Japanese, right? Unless the affirmation is to get you past a story that you can't learn a new language. And so in some situations, you have a bunch of different kinds of resistance coming up all at once, and you have to use a bunch of different kinds of tools in order to deal with it. But try and learn and try again. And remember, it's only failure if you stop trying. A more formal approach to effecting positive change is Scrum theory, which is a very silly word to most Americans. It comes from rugby, but it's a framework that has been developed and is used mostly in the development of products and services. And institutions and organizations are finding that it helps them be more efficient as they make changes, both to their organization and to their products and services. So there are 3 pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency is about open and honest communication, both with oneself and with everyone else around. And that can be difficult and scary. It can be hard to stand up and say, I have a problem with this. But it can be even harder to listen to that without getting defensive. So mutual respect is key in a Scrum approach. Inspection, seek data. Look critically at the approaches that you're using and the goal that you're trying to seek. And adaptation, incorporate that data and use it to modify your approach and maybe even to modify your goal if that seems appropriate. When applied, these can also help us address any false assumptions that we're making. Because false assumptions are still stories, but we usually don't recognize them as such. We operate as though that's the truth, but my truth might be different from yours. And so when we work together in community to solve problems and to reach our goals, we have opportunities to question our false assumptions. And although Scrum is typically used in a group setting, it is actually super useful in personal growth as well. I'm Scrumming my life. It's pretty great. And so if any of you are interested, I can absolutely talk your ear off about Scrum for about an hour. But there's also a ton of information on the internet if you want to look it up. So back to improving the world. There's so much fear and anger around us all the time right now. You know, we heard it in the joys and concerns. And it's so easy to get stuck in that fear and anger and to lose hope. But the good news is that if we use these tools, we can affect meaningful, positive change. We can leverage the laws of physics and use inertia and momentum to further our goals rather than inhibit them.